Hey, this is Walter Jones.
This is Austin St. John.
And you're listening to
Ranger Danger.
Go Ranger Danger! Matt and Michael's Ranger Danger!
Hi Ranger Danger fans, Michael here, just with a quick message before the start of this episode. At the start we said we were going to cover issues 7 and 8, but by the time we'd finished issue 7, Kyle had somewhere that he had to be, so we only got through one issue this week. We will do issue 8 before issue 9 comes out. Tentatively that might come out in maybe 2 weeks, might be 3, it'll depend on some scheduling stuff, but it's coming. So this is just issue 7, ignore what we say at the start. We did not check our time properly, that's on us, but you know, we'll get to issue 8 soon. That's all. Enjoy. I think this was a pretty good one.
Welcome back to Ranger Danger Boom Room. This is the podcast where we talk about the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers comics coming from Boom Studios, and we are opening up the doors to welcome in and welcome back Ranger Danger Boom Room co-host and comic superstar Mr. Kyle Higgins. Welcome back, Kyle.
Thank you very much. It is good to be back.
Yeah, it's been a little while. So
Yep.
it's good to have you back in the Boom Room. And yeah, excited to talk about some comics. Today we'll be talking about issues number 7 and 8 of the comics. So try and move a little faster perhaps than we normally do. Get slightly less granular than usual.
So this maybe isn't a 5-hour long podcast.
Exactly. Yeah. But there's a lot of dramatic developments to cover, so I think we'll try and breeze through it. Maybe hit a few questions at the end if we have time.
Yep.
See how we go.
All right, mate.
Sounds like a plan.
Awesome. So let's start with issue number 7. Specifically with the first panel of issue number 7. I wanted to ask about Billy's broken glasses on the floor of Rita's dungeon. In the show, Billy goes from being a bespectacled nerd in overalls to sort of more handsome, confident guy that does not wear glasses. Is this in some way like the secret origin almost of Billy's lack of glasses, or am I reading too much into that?
I might steal that now.
Oh, there we go.
Jumped out.
No, it was just, I don't know. I was trying to think of a way to make things even worse and more depressing for Billy.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I like to open with extreme close-ups a lot of times, just because it's like, especially on a page turn, or the start of an issue, it's like you smash in on an extreme close-up of something, and you're disoriented and you're not quite sure what you're looking at. Yeah. It's just more of a style thing for me, and so the idea of like the broken glasses and them on the ground, and then that just kind of spiraled into, oh, what if Billy is searching for them and he can't find them for 3 issues, and
he finds a really interesting book to read.
There was something dark and kind of fucked up about that I liked.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I can say as someone who has worn glasses for 20 years, there's absolutely nothing worse than losing them. I once sent a message to my boss and said, I'm going to be late this morning. I lost my glasses, which means I cannot find my glasses because I cannot see where they are.
Yep.
It's just, it's awful.
Yeah, I'm like a -6.5 in one eye and a -7.5 in another. God. So
that's a lot.
I'm totally blind. Yeah.
Wow.
That's a lot, Matt.
Yeah, I'm
Matt
sure it
has
is.
perfect eyes.
That's not true.
Fuck you, Matt.
I have a cataract in my right eye.
Oh, well, there
I
you
just
go.
have like a super other good eye, so I'm all good.
Oh, okay. You should wear an eye patch.
I did for a while, actually.
Really?
To raise the eye strength of my other one.
Okay. I'm going to have questions about that, but we cannot.
This is probably the time.
We cannot talk about them right now.
Yeah.
So, this opening sequence, I guess, like Billy and Goldar. Is there something about that pairing in particular that interested you, or was it just that, like, that's the place that Billy ends up, and so that's the story you end up writing?
It's a little bit of both. I knew I wanted Billy, or I wanted Goldar in the Dark Dimension.
Yep.
Like, weirdly by choice. By kind of his own, he's staying there by his own accord in some ways. And then on top of that, I knew the Black Dragon was going to basically kidnap one of the Rangers in order to use their power coin for an access point to the Morphin grid. And so then it was like, well, then what happens to that Ranger? And so throwing them in the Dark Dimension made the most sense. And so then it was like, okay, well, which Ranger would be the weirdest pairing with Goldar? And Billy fit the bill.
It's a really interesting dynamic too, I think, because on the show, Goldar is a guy who always says exactly what's top of mind. He's not a subtle creature by nature. But having him be there with, like, he's clearly holding things back and is so much more considered than we used to see in Goldar be. Alongside
right.
But Billy, who's perhaps doesn't have the best sort of social skills anyway, so they make for a good conversational pairing, I think.
Sure. Yeah, that is a really good point.
So we've got Goldar and Billy in the Dark Dimension trapped. Meanwhile, in the Zord hangar, the Black Dragon is approaching the T-Rex Zord. I don't really have a question here outside of I really like Zord hangers, and I can't quite put my finger on why. It might be my childhood love of Thunderbirds. I think
it's 100% your childhood love of Thunderbirds.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that answers that. So have you sort of figured out in your mind where those hangars are or where the Zords live yet?
I mean, I have ideas, but like nothing that's been officially approved by Saban.
Sure, absolutely. Nothing you'd say on the record. Yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right, well then let's oh boy, move on to the next scene, which starts with a giant pile of putties on the ground and then a flamethrower. So this is Babu and Squat marching putties into a pile, melting them, and then using them as construction material.
Oh, we haven't talked about that yet?
No. Not
this particular bit.
Oh yeah, that's like my favorite bit. I feel like I teased that on the show a couple times. Like that's my favorite bit I've done in the book. As weird as that might sound, like I don't know. Saban has reminded us time and time again that putties are not people.
Yeah.
So I've basically taken that as a challenge to find the most interesting uses or usages of putties imaginable. So there's another good one coming up in issue 10, but this one's still my favorite. Like the idea that like putties would be melted down as building supplies to like form Rita's walls, and like they're willingly sacrificing themselves to be turned into a wall is like.
I think perhaps.
I mean, if only Donald Trump had putties, that's
no.
His problems would be solved. Well, no, they wouldn't.
No, yeah, let's not make too grand a statement. I think it really is them lining up for it.
It's definitely them lining up
really
for it.
Oh yeah,
push the button on it.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, I mean that was a whole like conversation actually that we had to have at one point where it was like they're like, well, it doesn't make Saban was like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense like that why would they create putties and let them grow big and then use them. Like it doesn't like they couldn't track the logic of it. And I don't know, for me personally, it was kind of like, well, like we're thinking about this a little too much. Like the idea that like there are giant putties that come out of little tiny small clay creatures, like that in and of itself, I don't know, I think it's more efficient. But beyond that, the way we kind of like figured it out was like there are a lot of deformed putties, like battle damaged putties. So what happens to the putties that are missing arms, stuff like that.
You see that in the panel, which is why I think it makes total sense.
So that's the route we ended up going, and I think everyone was pretty happy with the result. So
except the putties.
Well, they don't feel.
Oh no, they're thrilled. They're not people, remember?
Okay, fine, great. That's fine.
Yeah, I kind of read it as like they're doing construction. In construction, if you're not thinking like very well because you're a putty, you're probably going to break some stuff, and it's the broken ones like, well, you go to the wall line, have fun.
Exactly.
It works well either way. So as this construction is going on, Rita's having some putties move her throne into exactly where Zordon's tube was, which to me is like a very, very specific statement that she's trying to make there.
Sure.
I guess my question then is, what is more important to Rita, taking over the world or like getting revenge on Zordon, or sort of like trying to bring him down a peg?
Yes.
Cool. Awesome. Good answer.
I think I kind of feel like they're not one and the same, but that's like a Sophie's choice. If Sophie loved both of her children, right? Like, yeah. No, I think Rita is a fan of both of those directions. It's not one direction for Rita. It's it's two directions. I don't know. I was trying to make a One Direction joke, but
you don't know enough about One Direction to make that joke.
I literally know nothing. I know more about Power Rangers than I do One Direction.
I mean, that's good because you're not writing the One Direction comic. Although,
well, yeah, that's true.
Yes. This type of research.
I feel like part of my pitch for let's update Power Rangers and let's do it 2016 and let's kind of reimagine some stuff was so that I wouldn't be beholden to all of the continuity that I don't know.
Yeah. I mean that's a good call. We've seen every episode of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers now, and I do not recall all of those because there's a lot. There's so many.
There's a lot.
So many. Yeah. We have a feature on our main show where we rank the monsters as they come.
Oh my god.
And often we will be like, oh, this guy was great. Where are we going to put him? I guess in between these two monsters that I don't recognize at all.
No, because there's like 150 of them.
There's a lot, yeah. There's a lot to remember, and I cannot blame you for that. This holding of Alpha's head.
Oh, yeah.
Does that image just, like, come to you fully formed? Or yes? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one that was like, oh, that'd be cool. You know, yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of like, I tend to see like iconography and versions pretty easily. And that's usually the stuff that I think of like first. If I get a visual or I get, something that, if I get a visual that I'm like, oh, that'd be really cool. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of write around that or write to make that work sometimes. And the case of like Rita holding Alpha's head, like that's one. There's another one coming up. There's a huge one coming up in issue 9. That was a visual that I just had. And it was like, oh, wow, that would be okay. How do we make that work? And it's a splash page in issue 9. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
Something to look forward to then?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I would say people definitely need to pick up issue 9. I can't overstate that enough.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
It's interesting what you're saying about writing around that visual because, as it turns out, it's quite an important part of how the plot is structured, which we'll get a little bit more into a bit later. But so, was it a case where you had that visual in mind and you had a problem to solve in the plot where the Rangers didn't really know what was going on? And that you just happened to realize that solves both problems?
No, I guess I would say it was a case of I had the plot already. Well, they kind of happen hand in hand. Mm-hmm. I kind of ebb and flow back and forth with stuff like this where I'll get kind of a cool visual, but then I'll have I'll also be thinking plot, and then I don't know. I just kind of make them work. I don't know. Yeah. Like connecting dots like that is actually not too tricky for me, but it is an organic process. And I think in this case, I had the plot, and I knew Alpha was destroyed from the previous issue. So it just became like, oh, I know what Rita could do here. That would be really creepy. It was like it was kind of like one of those things, especially in the case where there was stuff I wanted Rita to say and to get across. I wanted a little moment for her when she sits in her throne, and it's like you don't want someone just sitting there. You want to give them something to do, especially in comics. You want to give them some action. And just, I don't know, the idea of like, well, could she be talking to Alpha turned into, oh, well, could she be talking to Alpha's head?
Severed head?
Turned into, oh, could she be talking to Alpha's head with a shattered screen? Turned into, oh, could she toss Alpha's head to the putties with instructions to melt him down and turn him into a lamp. You know, like it's just kind of like as you do, right? Like A to B to C. Yeah.
That's a logical thought pattern. Yeah. You're just a regular human with a regular human brain.
Yeah.
All right. So, in the pocket dimension where the Rangers are hidden away, Trini is trying to understand the technology that makes the Morphers work. Difficult, I imagine, because it's basically magic. But she's doing a pretty good job, all things considered. So, was having Trini and Billy talk tech a little bit early on a bit of setup for Trini taking on some of that role in Billy's absence now?
Yeah, I like putting characters in situations where they're out of their element and kind of in over their heads. And Trini, who's always kind of been not only like Billy's translator, but also a bit of a, Trini was a little bit of a catch-all for me on the show. Like what I remember of her, she was kind of good at multiple things. Yeah. But in particular, from the technical standpoint, she could navigate some of these issues, but they wouldn't necessarily be second nature and they wouldn't be easy for her.
Yeah.
And so that was really interesting to me when we took Billy kind of off the playing field. Trini was the next person up who would kind of work to solve some of these issues. And I like if you couldn't tell by now, I like exploring self-doubt in characters.
Yeah. And
this is an instance of Trini feeling like Billy could be doing a better job at this than I could. I don't know. There was something emotionally kind of resonant there that I wanted to explore.
Absolutely. I find it quite interesting too because it seems like, vaguely speaking, the Power Rangers powers are part science and part maybe not magic, but almost like spirituality. And Trini, I guess, was always the most spiritual person on the show. Particularly on the panel on this page here, you see almost like diagnostics of the Rangers and like energy coming out from like different points on their heads. And it makes a weird sort of like intuitive sense to me that Trini would be the one who's like, energy comes out of people and these devices filter that somehow. That's really cool, I guess is my point.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. So we cut away to Tommy, who's a little away from the rest of the group, brooding, watching the moment of disaster.
Exactly.
Doing some good old hero brooding, which, it's important.
Good hero brooding shot.
We don't get a lot of brooding on Power Rangers. I guess because there's like always 6 dozen of them at all times.
Oh, and also because they're always happy because nothing ever goes wrong, largely.
That's, fair enough. Not a lot of reason to brood normally.
Yes, exactly. So we've got a conversation between Tommy and Kim here, which I think does a really good job of highlighting how cool their relationship is, because they can have an honest conversation with each other. But Kim can still call Tommy on his shit. It's very charming. And it's another situation where I don't have a question because I like it so much.
We need to get better at asking questions.
Not every interaction between Tommy and Kim has to be about them. Like about like the about Tim, as I like to call it. Tommy Kim. Or would it be Kami? No, I think Tim is better.
I feel like they go with Tomberly from memory.
That's terrible.
Well, look, I don't name it. They were named like when I was 6.
At least Timberly. Like, that would be better.
No, but then he only gets the T. Anyway, we'll make.
Yeah, you never want him to just have the T.
No. People will get angrier than they get angry about anything we ever do if we start insulting the names for their chips.
Right, okay, cool. Well,
I actually did not know what shipping was until WonderCon of this year.
Oh, wow. That you've lived a privileged life.
You sweet
I was on a panel. I was on a panel with Sam Humphries.
Mm-hmm. Love that dude.
And talking about how much I hate writing. And Sam asked everyone if they knew what shipping was, and they said yes. And then he proceeded to talk about his book Jonesy and how it's about shipping and this and that. And I swear to God, the first maybe 3 minutes, I thought he was talking about UPS.
Yeah, I know what we all know what shipping. What a weird question. Like, we all get the mail. I don't
And I looked up, and like my best friend and my at the time girlfriend are sitting there in the audience, and I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about? You know, like looking to see if like, and they're looking back at me like, you know, and or actually I think they both knew what it was, what it was. At least one of them did. But yeah, totally. I'm a Luddite, man. Like, I guess I used to be hip with the internet back in the day, but not so much anymore.
It moves so fast, and we get old so quickly.
I'm already old. Like, I haven't even gotten into Vine, and it's already dead.
Yeah.
I don't.
I've never had a Vine, and I never will.
Yeah,
apparently.
That's sad.
We've missed that boat.
Yeah. Oh God, we're all.
Oh shit! Escape baby.
Hey, all right, time to move on.
Professional podcaster. Okay, so next scene is people around the world receiving a message from Rita in multiple languages about how she's going to take over the world, essentially.
Yep.
And they turn to see giant Zords looming over them. We see in this scene the T-Rex Zord in Paris and the saber-tooth tiger in Japan.
Japan.
Was there a temptation to do all of the Zords to show where they were around the world, or did you want to sort of keep something for later?
There was a temptation, but at the same time, I wanted to leave the moment enough space to show Zord's full size.
Yeah, totally.
And if I showed all 5 Zords, it would be hard to give each one, like, it would be hard to convey the scale in the way that I wanted to convey it. So I decided to err on the side of, just 2, basically.
I have a question. Is there one in Australia, or are we doing fine still?
No, there is one there's one in Sydney.
Oh, damn. I mean, great. I'm going to go on my lunch break and see the giant
Which
robot.
one is in... Hold on a second. That's actually a really great... I think the Mastodon is in Sydney.
Nice. I like that one.
Let me see.
I think...
I have it here. They just sent me a proof for issue 9. And 9... Let me look it up.
Well,
now I want to know. Now I want to make sure I didn't put the saber-toothed tiger in Sydney in issue 9.
I mean, he could get from Japan to Sydney. Like, it'd have to do some swimming, but...
Paddle?
Yeah.
Right. Underwater mode.
Yeah, that's right. You've sorted that problem out already.
Or maybe you could get a lift on the pterodactyl.
That would be an interesting visual.
Yeah, I can't seem to find it. I'll have to look at this. I'll have to look later.
Well, I mean, look, that's a good reason to pick up issue 9 if you're an Australian Power Rangers fan.
That's right. Find out which Megazord is going to conquer us.
Yeah.
It's good to know.
Yeah, it's a little touch of personal.
I want to make sure I didn't mess this up. Hold on. Because I'm literally live fact checking an issue that's about to go to the printer. Oh yeah, it's the Mastodon in Sydney.
Yeah.
There we go.
Nice.
I'm so glad I didn't mess that up.
You're fine. So you planned it correctly, or got lucky, but they're the same thing. So
well, that's exciting. My favourite Zord has come to conquer me and enslave me.
Aw,
yeah.
I mean, if you had to be conquered and enslaved by a giant robot, at least it could be your favourite.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So you're talking about scale. I think what's really cool here is that I think the Zords have been impressive before, but this is the first time that they've seemed scary.
Yep.
Particularly in this context. How much did you want to sort of like toe that line between they're a looming threat or like let's show them destroying some stuff to sort of really put a point on how disastrous the situation is?
That's a really good question. I was more interested in really showing them loom.
Yeah.
And the thing for me was basically this idea of like the big giant protectors that the Zords are, usually shown to be, are now the aggressors.
Yeah.
I don't know. There was just something really powerful to me about that inversion. As simple as it sounds, like, oh yeah, they take over the Zords. Rita takes over the Zords. Great, like it's kind of a low hanging fruit idea, but there was something about like juxtaposing these Zords that have saved the world many, many times before, just kind of recontextualizing their appearance.
Yeah.
And playing more for the menacing angle, and then juxtaposing them against real locations and real cities and real monuments.
Yeah.
That not only show, a sense of scale, but I think it helps to convey kind of that sense of like, of ramifications.
Yeah. What's at stake if?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, so we've got that sword hanging over our heads. We cut back to the Power Rangers, who are watching what's going on in the pocket dimension and worrying somewhat, understandably, about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's suggested that maybe they go to the moon to try and get a portal to rescue Billy.
Yeah, I mean, what else would you do?
Yeah. But they don't really know how they're going to get there because it's on the moon.
Yep.
Until Jason gives Tommy a meaningful look in what is maybe one of the most satisfying panels of the comic so far, because you turn the page and it's the Dragonzord in space.
It's the Dragonzord in space on the moon.
Yeah. So I guess, how did this one come to you, Kyle?
Well, originally I wanted the Dragonzord. I wanted to turn the page and the Dragonzord in a full splash shot was just marching across the moon. Mm-hmm. But then it opened a whole can of worms about how does the Dragonzord get to the moon? Yep. And I retorted with how does the Dragonzord get anywhere? Because I still don't know how the Zords actually get to the places they need to be at. Yep. That didn't go over great. Uh-huh. So then it turned into like the Dragonzord needs to fly to the moon. Can he use his rocket fingers as jet propulsion? Yep. And to which my obvious answer was sure, because Dragonzord. Yeah. And yeah, so so that's kind of what happened. As far as like how we got to the actual kind of plot point. Yep. This issue was interesting because I had outlined a much different story, and then in issue 6, I pulled an audible, and I decided that it would be more interesting for Rita to basically overtake the command center and move into it. And it'd basically be like occupied territory, you know, which threw a wrench in kind of the rest of my outline for the arc. And there were like certain plot things about like where Billy was going to, was that one? Where Billy was going to be? No, I think he was always going to be in the dark dimension. But like we kind of were creating this. I had originally been thinking like, well, you know, in the show they can. I feel like Jason just teleports into the dark dimension at one point, doesn't he?
Yeah, they get some magic sticks and they use them to open a hole in the park.
Yeah, and so my thinking was like the dark dimension would be kind of accessible, but then it became more interesting when I started to set limitations on it.
Yeah.
Where it was like, well, they can only really get at it from Rita's base. And then it turned into, well, okay, that's interesting. So they have to go to the moon because Rita's down in the command center.
Yeah.
You know, so the idea of like, well, she's left the moon kind of open, you know, the forces aren't as strong up there now.
Yeah.
I don't know. There was just something about it that I thought was interesting. And so then it turned into like, well, how do they get to the moon? Which then turned into, I really want to see a Zord walking across the moon. Which turned into, let's have a Zord walk across the moon and then carry out a full assault on the putties that are manning the laser cannons.
Yeah.
And yeah, totally.
Hard to argue with any point in that, really.
I mean, logically, it's all pretty sound, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you think about it, so many of the putties are being used for construction material. Of course, she's going to be short-staffed. She's building walls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So the Dragonzord is on the moon. The Dragonzord is approaching the moon palace. The putties have a fuck-off big cannon that they're blasting. But, of course, the Dragonzord has finger rockets, so it's NBD.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we see Tommy give the dagger over to Jason so he can control the Dragonzord in his absence as he goes into the moon palace.
Right.
Which, you know, it's cool because it's absolutely supported by the show in that Jason...
I also totally want you to just take a moment and just think about that sentence that you just said.
About the...
just everything about that sentence was like out of context sentence. Like Tommy gives Jason the dragon dagger so that he can control the Dragonzord in his absence as he goes into the moon palace.
Yeah. I mean, that's
you couldn't make this up.
Right? Yeah. I was about to say you couldn't write this stuff, but you can, apparently.
You can. Definitely. We have empirical proof that someone can write this stuff.
And now we know.
Yeah.
So, Tommy is heading into the moon palace. He sees the transporter, and he's like, oh, great, it's unguarded.
I have a question before we get to the next thing, which is the transporter. Mm-hmm. That's a thing that doesn't exist in the show.
Right.
What sort of description are you giving when you're sending scripts to? Is that just some sort of transporter, or are you being more specific?
I think in this case, I actually just said it's a room with a giant transporter that could open a portal to the dark dimension. Mm-hmm. So Hendry, as you do, I didn't inundate him with any sort of reference, or I didn't have strong opinions on that one. Sure. There are other elements in the book that I have strong opinions on, but that one was not one of them.
Yep. Then we hear welcome back, Tommy, from across the room. Yeah. And we have who's proving to be just the most terrifying dude in the world. Turns out it's not unguarded. The black dragon is there, and shit's gonna go down. Oops, I have a page. Oh, good. Okay, so we're back in the pocket dimension where the Rangers are hiding, and we get, maybe for the first time, the Rangers sort of talking about the possibility of Zordon being dead or alive, and then realizing that they don't really know what Zordon is, so that's hard to answer. Do you have an idea in your head of what Zordon is and how Zordon is?
I, again, do have ideas, but none of them have been approved by Saban just yet. I don't think I've actually told them any Zordon. We haven't really talked to Zordon yet.
Yep.
So...
cross that space bridge when you come to it, I guess.
Right?
Yeah. So, we've got the Dragonzord continuing his assault on the palace by just blowing up everything he can get his rocket hands on, which is great. Yeah. And the line "rocket fingers, oh yeah" from Jason, which is, I think, a good bit of sort of reader relationship, because that's what everybody's thinking at that point.
I don't know why that line made me laugh too. Like, I wasn't sure I would be able to get that in there. I don't know why it would be a problem, but for some reason, Jason calling out the rocket fingers still makes me chuckle.
I love the idea that he's a dude who regularly pilots a robot Tyrannosaurus and then gets to be in charge of a giant humanoid robot with the raddest sword that falls from space and kills giant monsters. And even he is like, yeah, but what if that had missile fingers as well?
Yeah, exactly. Grass is always greener, my friends.
That's exactly it. And for some reason, rocket fingers are so much cooler than anything else. I don't know what it is about the fingers. If it just had, shoulder-mounted missile cannons, whatever, man.
It's because you want to just be able to imagine, pointing at shit and blowing it up.
Yeah,
right?
okay, you figured it out.
Right.
Yep, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So the Black Dragon knocks Tommy across the moon, which, moon gravity, great. And then he looks up at the Dragonzord, the Black Dragon that is, and says, oh, well, that's probably Jason facing me without powers. Awesome. So is that implying that the Black Dragon has an understanding of the Power Rangers sort of operational dynamics?
I think that would be a fair assessment, yes.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So he grows to Zord size,
Yep.
and then it's on between Dragonzord and Black Dragon. Again, don't know what to say except for it's fucking rad. It's a real good time. So the Black Dragon gets a good hit in and uppercuts the Dragonzord into space. Another good sentence to say out loud. And yeah, he gets picked up by Tommy gets picked up by the Black Dragon. He's dangled in between his giant fingers, and that's where we stop for that issue. That's an incredible cliffhanger. Thankfully, we don't have to sort of have a cliffhanger on our podcast because we're ready to talk about the next issue. But yeah, that's cool. Do you have anything to add to that, Michael?
No, I guess before we move on to issue 8, Kyle, was there anything else about issue 7 that we didn't talk about?
No, I think that's
Cool.
I think that's a pretty good assessment, or a pretty good place to land. Actually, I'm looking. They just sent me the proof for the final proof for 9. Ooh. So I'm going through that.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
All right, so that's issue number 7 wrapped up. We were going to do issue number 8, but unfortunately Kyle has to go and live his life.
Yeah, what a nerd.
I know. I'm a terrible human being, guys. I'm sorry.
You do not have to apologise at all. But we will absolutely get back together soon to cover issue number 8. So you do actually have a bit of a dramatic pause with that cliffhanger we're talking about. So we will do that shortly. Remember to follow Kyle on Twitter if you already haven't. Pick up the next issue, number 9, should be out in about a month-ish, roughly, I guess.
Yeah, it's like 3 weeks to a month, somewhere in there.
There we go. And as Kyle said, you're definitely going to want to pick that one up. If there's one that you don't want to miss, it's issue number 9.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining us again, Kyle. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. And we'll talk about issue 8 very soon.
Sounds good. We'll see you then.
Okay.